I saw you worked at Born Social.
Yeah, so that they were the agency that I joined in the East when I moved there, and that was cool because I was doing like photography, writing for like various different clients in different industries. So I was like, this is more, a little bit reined in, but also it was a very small agency at that time, so it was still like mad, mad startup vibe. And then that kind of allowed me to, I think, fall into where I am now, because a couple of the clients that I got in initially were fashion clients. Because they're like, oh, you take good photos of people and you like taking photos of details and stuff, like obviously clothing. Yeah. Great. Can you just take these clients? I'm like, cool. And then there was a client that I had called Tom Smart, which is a hat maker. And I fell in love with that because like got on with Alan, the guy who ran it really well anyway. But he was like, this is the menswear world. Like, this is what it's like. I was like, oh, cool. Like, I didn't care about fashion. I was like, just wearing whatever. And then, he kind of introduced me to that world. And then 3 years on, I saw an opening at a company called Tailoring, which is a bespoke shirt maker. And at that time, I didn't even know the gravitas of, like, I knew about them, but the history that they had, like I didn't know. But I interviewed with them and I was like, this is what I can do. Because I'm like, no, I can do your social media. Like, that's what I'll do. But I can also help take the photography for the shops and stuff like that, as well as like, copywriting. So like
everything they need.
Yeah, exactly. Really cool. And in this day and age, it was very much a case of like people try to consolidate. Brands try to consolidate. If they can get someone that can do a lot of things, obviously there's
army knife, basically.
Yeah, but then there's obviously like at that point it was fine because it was very like all of these roles are now entirely different and they've kind of gone in their
own like unique thing.
Exactly. Yeah. Whereas back then it was like a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of this, which then kind of made it not only manageable in terms of a workload, but it was quite fun. And then Thermal and NASA are like the preeminent shirt maker for royalty, all of the James Bond films, like Great Gatsby, like pretty much like that. So like the first gig that I got there was going to the Kingsman premiere because they did the shirts for the film, and I was like, oh, this is cool, man. This is a good starting and then after a couple of years there, I ended up joining the Rake magazine, which was a luxury menswear tailoring magazine, and that basically opened the doors to all of Savile Row, all of the best tailors around the world, essentially, because at that point in time I joined a few months before COVID, and I was looking after digital. So I was doing their social media and their online editorial. Well. Wow. So when COVID hit, I became the busiest I've ever been because suddenly people were on Instagram, people were on websites.
Shopping.
They weren't doing anything else because they had nothing else to do. So I was like, oh, cool, fine. I'm like, right. So it was wild because I had like we had an e-commerce platform at that time, and I was liaising with our warehouse in Ladbroke Grove or wherever it was. They would DHL me like products I would then wear and self-shoot and then post on social to say, hey, we've got these clothes that are perfect for your lounging days at home. It was mad, man.
It's great. But I was going to ask about that because it's like, I know that you're describing the whole world of social being big in this sort of menswear, but personally, I don't come across it that often. And I kind of wanted to actually get your take on it. Like, is there a sort of etiquette? I wouldn't call it etiquette, but like paid ads, for example, that you see on Instagram all the time. You wouldn't see certain brands that you've just described doing that. And I've always wondered, are there certain channels that because of tradition, they don't like to tap into because it might devalue the reputations they have? Or are they open to kind of being as active on social?
If you asked me 10 years ago, I'd agree with you.
Okay.
Now you have to be on social. All of these brands are on social, but it's either a case of their budgets are limited, so they have to be very particular with where their paid marketing goes.
Okay.
And also with the now added benefit of being able to hyper target your audience as well. If you're not into tailoring, you're not going to see these brands.
Yeah.
But if you're into, like, all my ads are all tailoring houses, or like cloth merchants and stuff like that. So there is a lot of brands, and most heritage brands are now on social,
Okay.
and that's like across the board. Like obviously TikTok is a little bit still kind of uncharted territory,
enough.
but on the whole, you know, they have to, because even their original like older clients are now on social. So the more kind of, I think, universal it becomes, you know, if you're not on social, you're kind of missing a trick, because even if it is just like a shop window, it's a shop window.
Of course.
I think you touched a good point in like tailoring being a specific subject and like an area that you need to have some sort of invested into, otherwise you're not gonna get that.
Yeah,
And it's one of those things where even if you're shopping for a suit, obviously the keyword will come up and that will get you going, but it'll only like reach a certain point as to when you stop searching for it, because that means your occasion's gone.
Yeah.
And then that probably feeds the algorithm to be like, okay, well, not really searching for that anymore, back to what it was before.
I'm sure there's kind of, which is, you know, we'll probably touch on, but there's cultural words, part of the tailoring culture and the menswear culture that you would be a part of. Like I saw you went to this thing which I've only just learned about a little bit. I've seen it before, and it's like I didn't know the difference. I thought it was, if I'm being honest, my ignorant self just thought it was like another fashion week type of thing. But then reading it,
it's a
more,
menswear trade show, but like a tailoring trade show. So like you'll find luxury heritage brands there that will, you know, showcase their new collections. There's only ever like actually like 1 or 2 runways. It's basically like a trade show. But the thing about that is that because you've got the best tailors from around the world all descending into one of the most beautiful cities in the world, it's a gold mine. Not only for, and I'm not talking about like the Pity Peacocks, which is what people will first see. Like that's a very small segment of one wall that you know, annoyingly, it's essentially clickbait. That's those guys, right? But like you will never see as many well-dressed men and women in one place as you will if you go to Florence during Pitti. It's something else, and it's like, and it's all of those, the beautiful details about clothing. It's like my whole thing about how to dress is that you should dress in a way that people will walk past you, they'll see you, they're like, I don't know why he looks really good, but he looks really good. There's something about what it is that he's wearing, and it can be something as simple as what I'm wearing now. It doesn't need to be tailoring per se, but it's when you kind of look back and it's like everything is fitting perfectly. Like the proportions, the way you dress for your body shape, like all of that is kind of what comes
all
into
working.
it. And basically that's what Pitti is. Like you will see the people there, which is why there are so I go there as a photographer.
Nice.
Because I cover street style for a lot of menswear publications and that kind of stuff, as well as shoot for some of the brands that are out there. And it's like, it's phenomenal. Like it's such an incredible experience.
You know, in my brain, where it's like when you were describing, it came back to Davos again.
Oh yeah,
from our conversation with Pippa, right? It's like this communion of like high quality individuals in one area, but you just don't understand the levels at what you're at. Do you know what I mean? Like you said, like the tailoring is at its peak. You have a multiple amount of people there in the same place. Obviously, they're gonna try and flaunt their way, right? That's just what it is. But I was just going to ask, in that sense, what does that, again, like coming back to where you've grown up and stuff, how does that feel to be in that position, in that space of like, I'm here, I'm taking photos for brands, I'm looking at said brand, I'm looking at what they're producing in person. It must be crazy.
It is. I think I had a really out of body experience this time when I went, because I had a couple people. Because obviously, you know, I'm covering street style, so I'm shooting anyone that looks cool. And I now I'm getting more people be like, man, I've always wanted to be photographed by you. I've seen you here so many times, and like that for me is like, and then they're like, yeah, we love your stuff. It's so great to be able to actually have a photo taken by you. I'm like, what? Like that's a really weird thing for me, because you know, going into that menswear subsect of photographers, there are some of the best menswear photographers at Pitti, and like I'm very much not at their level, and yet like I'm now getting people saying things that I would say to them. So I'm like, okay, maybe I'm getting there.
Yeah.
And it's cool to be able to do the things that I'm doing now, and working with the brands that I'm working with. Because again, especially because I didn't really have the intention to ever go into menswear, let alone doing what I'm doing now.
This is exactly, so this is what I saw. I was going to ask this later on, but from the cut from another cloth, what I realized was, like, reading their articles, there's a few of them that said, you know, they'd studied law or they'd gone into finance, and then they realized further down the line that's not what they wanted to do. And then they've gone back, they've come into tailoring, and like, I mean, it sounds a very similar case for yourself, where you're like, it's like, it wasn't an intention, but at the same time, it kind of all fitted together, just like a nice suit, essentially.
I think the thing that slightly makes me slightly different to a lot of people, especially South Asian heritage, is that I was able to pursue what I wanted.
This is again another question. How have you managed?
So
because I know it's like you've done a lot of creative stuff.
Yeah. So when I studied music because that's what I wanted to do. And you know, my parents were always very positive. So I've got an older sister, and she went into fashion. Awesome. And you know, and she was very driven, very kind of good at what she does, and was like always like, this is what I'm going to do. And because I had that same mindset initially with music, they were like, look, as long as this is something that fulfills you, but also you can actually make a living out of it, like, you've got to do this and you've got to be good at it.
Yeah.
And that's all it was. And to be fair, like, if I wanted to stay down the music path, I was doing it full time. I could have done it. You know, whether it's like as an artist, you know, like I'd always do that. You know, I'm still making music now, but I could have stayed in that industry. Whereas when I started doing photography, again, it wasn't something I actually intended to do in terms of going into the menswear space. But then I was like, oh, I'm quite good at this. And actually, I'm pitching myself to brands and I'm giving them quotes and they're just saying yes. And I'm like,
oh, it works.
It's like, cool. And then, so, and the surprising thing about that is I actually enjoyed doing photography and menswear photography as much as I did making music, which is why I was like, I'm happy to do this, because now it basically means that I'm doing something I enjoy as a job, and it's basically funding everything I want to do musically.
Yeah.
Whereas before it was like, music was great, but when I was working in that industry, also trying to fund it, it was a bit soul destroying. Yeah. Whereas now I can do both, and
so there's a level of freedom you need in that space, right? Because like with the pressure of being an artist, you need to be like, everything needs to flow in this way. And you
need to have the openness to be able to, I think, I think that what I'm hearing is you wanted to create, however that is, whether through music, whether through the photo aesthetic, or whatever you do, you want to create. And I think I'd love to know if there's anything that you've taken from, like, for example, into your writing or into your photography, from your music, from the type of, like, the way you curate your lyrics and stuff like that. Have you transferred any of that type of feeling into?
Yeah, it all overlaps. So like a lot of times when I've done like brand campaign videos, you know, there's been quite a few times where I've done the music as the background, because I'm like, because for them it's like, cool, it's not, they don't have to worry about copyright and like stuff because it's mine. And then for me it's like, cool, it's that good brand association. So there is a lot of overlap where it makes sense. But again, like, because I come from like a writing background, through music, and like one of the other, you know, I always wanted to go into journalism at some point. So I always try to be able to write like various things. So sometimes, and that basically helped my kind of writing career in terms of music as well as fashion. So,
okay. With the whole kind of like moving into journalism, I guess now, because we were just having a conversation about AI before, and basically AI is kind of not democratized journalism. Democratizing seems to be the buzzword of the moment, but journalism, for somebody like you who's obviously takes writing seriously from your music and kind of now gone into journalism and had the dream, how do you feel Do you lean into it now with using AI, or are you one of those people who?
I see. I kind of use it as a challenge. Like I haven't used ChatGPT or anything for anything I've written before. Haven't as yet. Don't really intend to. But again, I'm also not necessarily against it. I just think we need to harness it to a point where we're not taking all of the creativity out of what we do.
Of course.
And if as long as we're doing that, I think generally there is room for both to expand. But
it's like if you write something and you say, "Can you just check the grammar on this?" That's like you're giving it a task to be like, just check the grammar, nothing. Don't add anything else. Do you see what I mean? Like, are they enough full stops? Are they correct? So you kind of, I guess there has to be a balance. You can't say, here's a piece of content that I've written. Can you please rewrite it in like X, Y, and Z? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Unless you want to translate it, that's a different story.
Because I think we're at the point where, there's so much personal expression and so much of your own identity you put into your words, and your words have a lot of meaning and have a lot of nuance, and that stuff can't be replicated. I think there's not too many, but a great writer, when they've written something.
Similarly, facts. That's
a good quote.
And I think I don't think we're at that stage of AI yet. The worrying thing is that we will be. I listened to that musically then that's a whole different conversation.
The AI track,
the Kendrick and Tupac one.
Drake
that was mad. Because I was listening. I didn't get the context of it before. I genuinely thought someone had sampled and just like mashed them too, and I'm like, oh no, that's the Kendrick record that Tupac has been rapping, and it was sick. Like I hated how much I loved that, because I was like, this is really cool. But also then it was like, oh no, this is not good.
I can see what by Snoop. I think Snoop was another one on the Drake diss, where he used Snoop's voice. And when I heard it first, I was like, Snoop's dissed Kendrick, but apparently like he got permission. Drake got permission to use his voice as the AI voice.
Yeah.
So I was just like, what?
Weird.
Like West Coast legend? Like it's a weird thing, but like you're right.
And also Snoop's performance.
Yeah, there you go.
But to be fair, I heard a quote because I watched an interview with will.i.am the other day, and they were talking about musicians and kind of writers and AI, and he was like, everybody, and he made a fair point, in all these industries, everyone uses computers. Computers have helped creators be more efficient at creating. So you're never going to eradicate that human sense. It's just we're going to learn how to use the computers to execute what is in our minds still. So I think that goes back to your point of, even with the writing thing, if it's used in the right way and not exploited,
I think now there has to be that cultural shift of AI is not going to take our jobs. The jobs are going to be there, but they will be for people that know how to harness AI.
That's exactly what Pippa said as well.
Yeah, exactly. Literally like 2 weeks ago, she said the same thing. With
I like it. We're on the same page.
Davos and the AI stuff.